So, how do you get real intelligence on one of the most dangerous shipping lanes in the world? You can't just read the headlines. No, you got to send someone in. You send them on a high-stakes field trip disguised as, of all things, investment research. All right, let's get into this incredible story.
I mean, listen to that. It sounds like something straight out of a spy movie, right? But this was the actual reality for one analyst sent to figure out what was really going on in the Strait of Hormuz. The mission? To see if the world's most critical oil choke point was actually open for business or if it was about to shut down completely. The stakes were just absolutely through the roof.
And to really set the scene, the research firm behind this whole operation sent out this postcard. Greetings from the Strait of Hormuz. It's got this playful, almost darkly humorous vibe to it for a trip that was, anything but a holiday. It perfectly captures the massive disconnect between how we see these geopolitical events from a distance and the incredibly dangerous reality for people on the ground.
So let's meet our guy on the ground. He's only known as Analyst Number 3. He's fluent in 4 languages, including Arabic, which is obviously key. His assignment? Get into the strait and see what's actually happening with his own eyes. But the gear he packed for this trip? Well, it wasn't your typical stuff for a business trip.
Okay, check out this loadout. First up, a big wad of cash. $15,000, to be exact. Next, a super rugged Pelican case packed with all sorts of specialized equipment. And to top it all off, a pack of Cuban cigars and some Zin. I mean, that list alone tells you everything you need to know about the kind of mission this was about to become.
And here it is. This is the actual gear. This photo just grounds the whole story in reality. This isn't just some abstract idea. It's the real stuff for a real trip into a potential war zone. You can see the case, the cigars. This is tangible proof of the incredible risks somebody took just to get information.
Now, getting to the strait was one thing, but getting into it, that was a whole other challenge. From the moment he got there, Analyst Number 3 had to basically lie and defy orders just to get anywhere near the water.
He just left this trail of broken rules in his wake. At a desert checkpoint, he signed a document flat out promising he wouldn't gather any information. Then, he had to hide his recording equipment from inspectors. He blew past direct warnings from Omani border agents, and he even defied Coast Guard officers who were armed with assault rifles. His determination was just off the charts.
So once he's finally on the water, things get even more intense. He's in this tiny, rickety speedboat, only 18 miles off the Iranian coast. You've got Shahed drones flying overhead and Iranian Revolutionary Guard patrol boats running patterns in the distance. Yeah, this is a very, very long way from a trading desk in New York City.
And then, just like that, the mission was compromised. The Coast Guard swooped in and intercepted his boat. Analyst Number 3 was detained, and they took his phone, the one with all his initial notes and photos. For a minute there, it really looked like the entire high-risk gamble was going to end in total failure, with all that crucial intelligence lost for good.
But he made it back, and during an 8-hour debriefing, he spilled everything he saw and learned. So after all that risk, all that defiance, what was the game-changing intelligence that he managed to bring home?
This is the million-dollar question, right? Why risk it all? What could he possibly see that you can't just get from satellite images or news reports? Well, the payoff is always in the details, the kind of stuff you can only learn by actually being there.
Okay, first, he saw trade adapting in real time. This map shows the main, established shipping channel over by Iran's Qasem Island. But Analyst Number 3 saw something brand new. These huge crude carriers and LNG tankers were hugging the coast of Oman, creating a totally new, independent route just to avoid Iranian patrols. Capital always finds a way.
And here's where it gets really counterintuitive. While most people on the outside assumed traffic was basically dead, it was actually starting to recover. So before all the conflict, you had over 100 ships passing through every day. Locals told him that number crashed to just 2 to 5 ships. But on April 2nd, Analyst Number 3 personally counted at least 15 ships making the crossing. The strait wasn't closed, it was adapting.
And the stakes here are just massive. If the strait were to fully close, even for a short time, the global economy would lose an estimated 10.6 million barrels of oil every single day. A number that big is exactly why this kind of on-the-ground intelligence is so unbelievably valuable.
So how does this boots on the ground, or I guess boat on the water intelligence, actually translate into what happens in the markets? Let's connect the dots, from a tiny boat in the Strait of Hormuz all the way to the global trading floor.
On the left, you've got this grainy photo. It was taken from the analyst's second phone, the one the Coast Guard didn't find. And on the right, you have a complex financial chart tracking something like interest rate futures.
This is the connection. That one ship in that one photo is a data point that directly influences how trillions of dollars get moved around based on fears of inflation and economic chaos.
What a crisis like this really does is speed up the transition to what experts are calling a multipolar world. In this new reality, there isn't one single superpower keeping the peace anymore. Instead, every nation is basically forced to act as its own sovereign entity, looking out for its own security and its own bottom line.
Okay, so what do you do with all this information? What's the actionable takeaway here? How can an investor actually use this incredible intel to shape their strategy for this new kind of world?
The long-term trend is just undeniable. It doesn't really matter if the Strait of Hormuz fully reopens next week or next year. The big structural shift is permanent. Countries outside the US, especially in Europe and Japan, now realize they simply can't depend on anyone else for their security. They are in an all-out race for energy independence, and they're ramping up defense spending.
And this is where the opportunity really is. This energy sovereignty basket is essentially a watch list of companies in Europe and Japan that are perfectly positioned to benefit from this massive shift. We're talking about renewable energy developers, grid operators, battery manufacturers, and of course, defense contractors. This is the real, tangible investment thesis that was born from that one dangerous boat ride.
And this is maybe the most crucial point of all. The drama in the Strait, the drones, the patrol boats, that's actually the smallest part of the story. The real, lasting story is the fundamental shift underneath it all. It's about what happens when every country on Earth starts putting its own interests first. That changes absolutely everything for investors.
Which really just leaves us with one final question. In a world where global alliances are temporary and transactional, and there's no single global police force to keep order, we're entering a new age of empires. So the question for every single investor is, how are you going to reposition your portfolio for this new reality?